Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're diving into, the intersection of philosophy and spirituality and modern society.
Okay.
Sounds pretty heady, huh?
Yeah.
We'll be looking at an article from the Spiritual Seek website, and it's called The Importance of Philosophical and Spiritual Research in Contemporary Society.
All right.
So our mission is to help you understand why these authors think this kind of research is so important,
Right.
particularly given that the modern world is so focused on materialism and technology.
And it's interesting how the article kind of jumps right into that tension between the material
Right.
and wanting something more, something deeper.
Yeah.
It argues that today's society operates under this assumption
Okay.
that material reality is all there is, and that science is the only way to real knowledge.
Yeah, it's like we're constantly being told that success is measured by how much you acquire. The bigger the house, the fancier the car, the more exotic the vacations.
Yeah.
Like the better you are as a human. Do you ever feel that pressure, that push to prioritize material wealth over inner peace or wisdom or...
I think most of us grapple with that, at
Yeah.
least to some degree.
Yeah.
And the article really resonated with me when it talked about the consequences
Okay.
of that mindset.
Okay.
Like you work and you achieve material success, and then what?
Right. Right.
There's just this empty feeling.
Yeah.
Like you're always striving for the next thing and never really arriving.
And that's where I think Eric Fromm's work comes in to have or to be. It's not necessarily about rejecting material possessions,
Right.
but shifting the focus from having to being.
Right.
Like cultivating your character and your relationships, your connection to something larger than yourself.
Yeah.
So how do you see Fromm's ideas kind of playing out in the world today?
I think they're incredibly relevant.
Yeah.
You know, just look at the minimalist movements or the interest in mindfulness.
Yeah.
There's definitely a sense that people are realizing that true fulfillment doesn't come from just accumulating things,
Yeah.
but from cultivating a richer inner life.
Yeah. And that leads right into the article's next point.
Yeah.
This idea that humans have this basic need for higher meaning, something beyond survival and material comfort.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The article talks about Aristotle's concept of eudaimonia,
Right.
which is often translated as flourishing or living well.
Okay.
But it's not just about happiness.
Right.
It's about living a life of virtue and purpose
Yeah.
in alignment with your values.
Do you think it's possible to achieve that kind of flourishing in today's world?
It's a challenge,
Yeah.
but I think it is possible. I think
Yeah.
it requires a conscious effort
Yeah.
to step back from all the noise and the distractions
Okay.
and really reconnect with what matters.
And maybe that's where the article's focus on younger generations comes in,
Yeah.
because they're facing a really unique set of pressures and challenges.
The article argues that education systems are becoming more like businesses,
Oh, interesting.
prioritizing efficiency and standardized testing over things like critical thinking and ethics.
Do you see that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
In your own experience.
I mean, I think there's a huge push for measurable outcomes,
Yeah.
skills that are directly marketable.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
But I think we lose something in that
Yeah.
the article argues that this can lead to this disconnect
Okay.
from traditional sources of wisdom,
Okay.
like philosophy, literature, spirituality,
Yeah.
all these things that can help us grapple with these big questions.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a really thought-provoking point.
Yeah.
While practical skills are important,
Sure.
I do think there's a risk of neglecting those deeper aspects of human development. We need to find a way to nurture both
Right.
if we want to raise well-rounded people.
And it's not just formal education, right? Like the article talks about the diminishing role of mentors. Who are these younger generations turning to for guidance?
Yeah.
Like, have you had mentors?
I've been really fortunate to have some great mentors
Yeah.
who challenged me and helped me to stay curious about the world.
And then there's the elephant in the room.
So social media?
It's social media, right?
Yeah.
The article says that social media can make those feelings of inadequacy worse, especially for young people.
It's so easy to get caught up in the comparison game
Right.
when you're just constantly bombarded with these images of perfection.
Yeah.
You can't help but feel like you're not good enough.
Yeah.
You don't have enough.
Right.
You're not doing enough.
And if you're already struggling with these questions
Yeah.
of who you are and what your purpose is,
Exactly.
it can be really tough.
I was like a double whammy.
Yeah.
You know, you're being told that your worth is tied to these external things.
Right.
And then you're being shown these unattainable ideals that make it seem like you'll never measure up.
Yeah, it's almost like this perfect storm of societal pressures and these technological influences that can make it really difficult to like connect with your authentic self.
And that's why I think that next section on spirituality is so important.
Yeah.
It offers a way out.
Okay.
It presents spirituality as a way to reconnect with something deeper, something more essential than the material world.
So how does the article define spirituality?
Well, it takes a pretty broad view.
Okay.
It talks about reconnecting with your soul.
Okay.
And it explores this concept from both Western and Eastern perspectives.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So, for example, on the one hand, it talks about Plato's idea of the soul as this immortal thing that exists beyond our physical bodies.
Right. Like we're more than just flesh and blood.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then it goes on to talk about Eastern philosophies like Hinduism and Taoism, which also have rich traditions around the concept of the soul.
So what's like the common thread running through all those different views?
The idea that our true essence, our soul, isn't bound by material concerns or the trends of the external world.
So it's about recognizing that there's this deeper dimension
to
who we are.
Something that connects us to something bigger than ourselves.
And reconnecting with that is key to finding true fulfillment, a sense of peace that can't be shaken.
So how do we cultivate that connection?
Well, the article talks about different practices that can help us on this journey. Things like meditation, mindfulness, yoga, contemplative prayer, engaging with philosophical texts.
So it's not just about like thinking about these things. It's about embodying them through practice.
Exactly. It's about cultivating a way of being in the world that's grounded in something deeper.
It's about finding that inner strength. And wisdom.
That can help us navigate all the complexities of life.
And the article ends on such a hopeful note. It says that philosophical and spiritual research can not only enrich our lives, but also help create a more compassionate and just society.
It's a beautiful vision.
Before we go any further, I did want to point out that the article has these two self-assessment tests. One called, Do You Have a Philosophical Mind?
Interesting.
And the other, Are You a Spiritual Person? And they consist of a series of statements you agree or disagree with to kind of help you reflect on your own inclinations.
That's cool.
Towards those things.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
It's a cool approach.
Yeah, we're not going to go through the tests or the answer keys.
But it's worth noting that it's in there.
It's worth noting that they're there.
Yeah.
Just as a way to encourage that self-reflection. And deeper engagement with the topic. It's a good way to make it relatable.
Yeah. So to recap, the article makes a strong case for why this kind of exploration is so important, especially in a world that's obsessed with material success and technology.
It's a call to reclaim our inner lives, you know, to reconnect with those questions of meaning and purpose.
That often get drowned out by the world.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it gives us some practical ways to do that. Through spiritual practices and philosophical thinking. But this is just the beginning of our exploration.
Welcome back. I think it's really interesting to consider how this call to prioritize philosophy and spirituality might resonate with people. Some might find it like a breath of fresh air, an invitation to step off the treadmill, you know.
Of more.
Exactly. Others might be a little skeptical, wondering if it's practical or even possible in today's world.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
The article does challenge some pretty fundamental assumptions of our society. But I think that's what makes this conversation so important.
I agree. And it's only fair to point out that there are other viewpoints out there. Like some would argue that focusing on material progress and technology has actually led to some amazing improvements.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, just think about medical breakthroughs. Communication technology. Access to information and education. Like, it's incredible.
It really is.
And then there's the argument that science offers a more objective way of understanding the world compared to philosophy or spirituality. You know, science is based on empirical evidence, rigorous testing, verifiable results.
Whereas philosophy and spirituality are a little more abstract.
Exactly. Much harder to define or measure.
So how do we, like, reconcile those?
That's the question. And there's not one answer. But I think the article points to balance. You know, it's not about rejecting science or technology. It's about recognizing that they don't have all the answers.
Right.
There are certain questions about meaning and purpose that science alone can't really address.
So it's about integrating those advancements with a deeper understanding of ourselves.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and talk about how we can apply some of these principles to our everyday lives.
Yeah.
Do any examples come to mind?
Well, one example would be mindfulness, which has roots in Buddhist philosophy.
Right.
It's about being present in the moment.
Yeah.
Paying attention to your thoughts and feelings without judgment.
Mindfulness has become so popular.
It has.
And for good reason.
Right.
Like there's evidence that it reduces stress, improves focus, helps regulate emotions.
It's like a mental superpower.
It really is.
And it's something that anyone can do.
Yeah.
Regardless of their beliefs.
Yeah. Another example would be Stoic philosophy.
Yeah.
Which emphasizes virtue and reason.
Right.
And living in accordance with nature. Stoicism has also had a resurgence in popularity.
It has.
Yeah. People are finding it really helpful for dealing with the challenges of modern life.
Especially for dealing with adversity.
Right.
And maintaining a sense of inner peace.
The Stoics believed that we can't control external events, but we can control our reactions.
Exactly.
That's such a powerful idea.
It is.
Especially when the world feels so chaotic.
Yeah.
Do you ever find yourself drawing on Stoic principles?
All the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that focus on what you can control and accepting what you can't is such a powerful tool for navigating life.
These are just two examples, though, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
There are so many other traditions that offer amazing insights and practices.
And the main point is, it's not about finding the one right answer or the one right path.
It's about exploring, experimenting,
Yeah.
finding what works for you.
It's about being open to new ways of thinking and being.
Exactly.
Creating that holistic approach to life.
Well said.
Yeah.
And in the final part of our deep dive,
Yeah.
we'll explore what all this means
Okay.
for society as a whole.
Sounds good. Welcome back. We've talked about why the authors think this stuff is so important, and we've even touched on some ways to use those principles in your daily life, you know?
Right.
But I'm curious about bringing this kind of thinking to those bigger systems that affect all of us, like our schools or workplaces, maybe even politics.
That's fascinating.
What would that even look like?
Like, imagine if philosophy and spirituality were given the same weight as science and technology. Not as replacements, but like alongside them. Like, what if our education system focused not just on skills you need for a job, but also on developing your critical thinking, your ethics, your empathy.
I like that.
Imagine classrooms where you're not just memorizing facts, but like debating philosophical questions, exploring different spiritual traditions.
Interesting.
Really grappling with like what it means to be human.
Wow. Instead of just churning out workers, we'd be creating like well-rounded individuals.
Exactly.
And it could even spill over into the workplace.
Imagine companies that prioritize their employees' well-being and their impact on the community.
Okay.
Work could become less about transactions.
Yeah.
More about human connection.
More about purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, but what about politics?
Oh, boy.
Because those systems feel so divisive right now.
It can feel hopeless sometimes.
Yeah.
But I truly believe this kind of thinking could make a difference.
Really?
Yeah. Like, what if political discussions emphasized understanding and compassion?
Okay.
Instead of just rhetoric and division, we could have real conversations.
Right.
You know, looking for solutions that help everyone.
That sounds so idealistic.
It does.
But it's also inspiring.
It's a big shift.
How do we even start?
It starts with us.
Okay.
By cultivating that awareness in ourselves, engaging in practices that feed our inner lives.
Okay.
And bringing those values into everything we do.
It's walking the walk.
Yeah, exactly.
Not just talking the talk.
It's being the change, you know, challenging the status quo.
Right.
Advocating for a more holistic way of life.
It's like we're planting seeds for a new way of being.
I like that.
Yeah, and those seeds have the potential to really grow.
They do.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
okay,
I want to leave you with one final question.
Okay.
What if we really did reimagine our systems through this lens? Our schools, our workplaces, even our governments.
Interesting.
What kind of world could we build?
That's a question worth pondering.
It is.
It's a challenge to embrace and a future worth striving for.
I think so, too.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Absolutely.
We hope it's given you some new insights.
Yeah.
And maybe even inspired you to keep exploring these big questions.
Absolutely.
Thanks for being here.
It was a pleasure.